Hey guys, well here is another update on our Super Duty Derby truck. Hey guys, Alex here with All For Him Racing, and today giving you another update on our Super Duty Derby truck build. So we have been hard at work and we have been busy with a capital B. Been a lot of late nights this past week here. I have really just wanted to buckle down and get this thing done. You know, just trying to really catch up so that way I won't be stressing at the last minute and actually have some time to do some painting, which is one of those things that we really like to do on our Derby vehicles. So a lot of late nights out here until like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then having to wake up again at 7 for work. So I'll sleep eventually when the Derby season's done, but for now we got to get this stuff done. So let's start off with what's been done since the last time you guys have seen this. Well, we've gone ahead and done some of the prep work for welding the doors. As you can see, I only have it cleaned up to the bottom of the window there. Well, that is per the rules. We are not allowed to weld wire or chain above the window opening. However, we are allowed to duct tape and those sorts of things, so we're going to be doing that for sure. At least get something up there to keep the door seams, you know, from being able to blow apart as easily. But we're definitely going to weld this all solid, so that way that's all one piece. We've removed the external door handle, at least on this side. However, the doors on both sides are still operational at this point until everything is welded. Also went ahead and put the front fenders on, and we did have the hood on it for a short period of time just to check things out, line it up, mark for headers and those sorts of things. So that is now off, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Let me just go ahead while we're right here by the door, and sorry, I gotta reach in here with just one hand and show you what we got going on inside. So you guys have already seen the cage. However, we have modified a few things. One, we welded a bar here, so that way we can mount our cable shifter when it comes in. I left it a little bit long because I'm not exactly sure on how the shifter is going to mount and line up. So we're going to you know, modify that as needed when the time comes. You can always remove metal, you can't add it back in as easily, so I thought, you know, why not. Got all the wiring hooked up and in place. You got our switch panel. Sorry, my cord on the camera is a little short at the moment, so trying to do my best. So got that lined up, got our gauges and everything hooked up. Obviously the battery's in place. I'll show you guys more on the other side. Other than that, not much has happened inside. Obviously that kind of work is very tedious and takes time. We did actually drill some holes already for the GoPro mount, so that'll be mounted once the time comes for that. But right now we are using that for other video footage. Been hard at work and spending a lot of time around the engine bay here. So, a few things of note. We got a mess of wires here, and the reason being we bought a custom kit to make our own wires. Well, so a few of you guys are probably wondering why would we do that instead of just buying the completed kit. Well, the way that these wires are intended to be routed, they're intended to be routed along the valve covers and then come up to the distributor. However, our headers are also very tight to those valve covers, and those wires have more than once had the insulation melted. We tried some different things. We got those socks that you put on the spark plugs. You can see them right there. But that just wasn't enough. So what we wanted to do was change things up and actually route our spark plug wires to the bottom side this time and go underneath the headers. So we got a set of wire, this kit, this set of wires with 90-degree boots, so that way the wires will go right down low. I've got them, you know, tied together with some different aftermarket bands that you can put on there. So we've got it lined up really good. I put those insulating volcano socks, as they're called, or whatever. They're like 3,000 degree rated. You know, pretty good stuff. Did that on both sides, and just temporarily I have the wires sticking into the ports where they actually need to go. And so I need to just simply mark where I need to cut and strip and then crimp all these terminals on. So that'll be a project for this evening when it's not so bright outside and, you know, at night when I can not make as much noise. Also, and it's kind of hiding behind the wires here, we got our new carburetor. So I did mention, I think in an early video, that we were going to change things up with what we were doing for a carburetor. We had an Edelbrock for the last few years. It ran pretty good overall, but it did load up on us a little bit, just I think more of my driving style than anything else. So we decided to dig a little deeper into the pocket and bought a Rochester Big G. So it's the 2G that's been, you know, modified. It's the Big G carb. You can get them on eBay. I got this one from a fellow derby driver. He came with the an adapter plate because this intake is a 4-barrel intake and the carb is a 2-barrel. So obviously we need to modify, you know, be able to get that modified so we could mount it all up. So that came with the carb and bolted right up. Thankfully I also had the right interface on the intake to account for that, so I didn't have the individual barrels. I had more of the slotted barrels, which allowed me to run the 2-barrel. Also got the throttle cable hooked up. I was able, with limited modification, to reuse the throttle cable from our old Chevy Derby truck. So I actually took the hole that went in the firewall and squared it up, just because the hole for the Chevy mount was square versus round. So squared it up and then was able to pop that piece in, was able to use the existing bracket that I had fabbed up a few years ago for mounting the throttle linkage, and as well as the bolt. So now that's all hooked up and good. There's no fuel hooked up, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pump it, but you see we got good motion there, and that will allow the pedal to work and fully, you know, floor this thing without the pedal actually bottoming out. So at the end of the day, that's exactly what I needed. I needed full range of motion on the carb, and I have it. Also, we got our fuel line hooked up here, at least down to the pump, and we're trying something new. I thought we were experiencing a little bit of vapor lock here in the last couple years. Just seemed like as the thing got really hot, we were getting just a little bit of a vapor lock situation going on. So I actually took the line and wrapped it in some heat protective tape. You can get it at any of your local auto parts stores. It's good for 400 degrees Fahrenheit direct contact, and then up to 2000 degree radiant. So the idea being is that'll just help insulate the fuel line. Again, it's not perfect, but it's still better than what I had. So that's what you guys see. It looks like aluminum foil, but it's not. It's wrapped on the fuel line, and that goes again all the way down to the fuel pump. I still have a fair bit of it left because it comes in like a 15-foot roll, so I'm going to throw some of that on the master cylinder too, just to help prevent that plastic master cylinder from melting, because that's definitely something that could happen in the Derby, and that would be no good, you know, just another thing to fail. So there's been a fair bit of time just in trying to figure all that out. Carb needed the right bolts because none of my old studs and everything else fit. Got the same situation going on this side. So again, routing all the wires underneath the exhaust and running it up to the top, and then obviously we'll get all those wires cleaned up, shortened up, and it'll be basically custom fit entirely and looking really good. Also got the air cleaner that came with the carb too, at least the base plate, and so we'll use our top part of the air cleaner and get that on there. And I did have to modify the cowl here, this front part, so that way I have room for the air cleaner, plenty of room for the air cleaner, I should say. It fit the way it was stock, but I just didn't like how close it was. I wanted to have a little bit more room and freedom. So we pushed it back and up a little bit, so hopefully that'll make life a little bit easier for us. I guess time will tell, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Also, got the brake lines hooked up, at least to the front for now. So we got the new hoses and new lines that go across, and they do work. This thing is still on jack stands. I haven't actually put the wheels on it yet, just because of all the projects we've been working on. It's been a lot easier to have it up on the jack stands, but just spinning it and having somebody push the pedal, they both work, so that's good. We have front brakes, and we're going to be hitting up the auto yard just to be able to see about getting a used, at least one used rear caliper for the rear end of this thing, so that way we at least have one brake on the rear end. Again, not perfect, but we are going to weld the thing posi, so I think it'll be fine for our needs. At least now I will have 3 brakes. You're going to say, why not have 4? Well, it's, you know, 25 bucks for a used caliper, and I'd rather just save 25 bucks and spend it on something else other than another brake caliper. So we're going to at least pick up one and be able to have rear brakes. So here's this side. Again, have all the wiring hooked up, all the gauges are hooked up and working. The battery is hooked up. The motor does turn over, but with the spark plugs detached, so I'm not going to show you guys that because it's just going to arc and spark at the coil, and I don't want to deal with it. But there you go. Trust me that the thing does turn over, and when we get the header, the new headers in that we ordered, we will be able to get this thing fired up and running. So definitely excited to see how this new carburetor works and runs with it. I got that all cleaned up. The wiring is all bundled up and looking pretty good. Cleaned it all up too. There's things that I think would like that need to be reconfigured and redone. I really would like to, after this season, just because of the timing, we're just going to use it as is. But next year, I'd like to just buy a nice big plug and literally just make it so there's one plug connecting the entire harness. So I have the setup here for inside the car, then at the firewall it's just one big plug, and then all the electrical that actually attaches to like the coil distributor and those sorts of things. Again, it's only going to save me so much because there is a number of big wires there that need to be hooked up individually, but at least it would save me some effort of having to reconnect some of those wires. So I think that'll be good in the long run. So looking forward to the future here. What we're going to do, we're going to get those wires figured out and cut and mounted all up on the front engine. We're going to extend one of those holes. Those are 2 vent holes that were in the cab. We're going to extend the one on this side, on the passenger side, to be a little bigger, and then that will be where we run the fuel line. We'll have to cut a hole in the seat and the seat back, so that way I can get the fuel line back there. I could go over top, but it's a pretty tall back, so I really just would rather just cut a hardy hole in the thing and just go all the way back. The seat is so nasty and dirty and smoked in and burned, and it's just not worth any money. So at this point, I might as well just cut a hole in that seat and run the line right through. Also, we're going to be working to get this bed off, you know, cut the bolts off, get the bed off, and get the new one that's going to be taking its place on and mounted. And then at that point we can hook the gas tank up, we can weld the cab and the bed together, we can get the seat back in place, and then once the seat back's in place and bolted, then I can go ahead and weld the doors. I need to have the doors accessible so that way I can be able to bolt that backrest, the back of the seat into place. So, you know, it's just a matter of a process of doing things in the right order to make sure that we can get it all done and good. So a lot of good progress. It might not look like much, but there was a lot of time involved in getting it to this stage. Again, a lot of late evenings of coming out here when I had the extra time and getting it done. If any of you guys do this, you understand how much time it takes to, you know, to take some of the existing things that you've built and modified, and then have to again modify them to make them work for your new vehicle that you're running. So there you go, guys. There is an update on the Super Duty Derby truck. If you guys liked the video, make sure to give us a thumbs up, and if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing. As always, we hope that you guys have a great day, and until the next video, we'll talk to you later, guys.